The music pulsed through the dimly lit bar, seeping into my skin like an unwelcome touch. Sweat gathered at the back of my neck as I wove through the crowd, balancing a tray of empty glasses that clinked softly with each careful step. The second-hand heels I'd bought from a thrift store a few blocks away throbbed against my feet, the only pair I owned that looked decent enough for a place as upscale as this lounge. "Table 7 needs another round," Marco barked as I approached the bar, not even bothering to lift his eyes from the cocktails he was stirring. I nodded, though he didn't see me, and set the tray down with a muted thud. The air was thick with a blend of liquor and expensive perfume that made my head spin. 6 more hours until the end of my shift. 6 more hours of forced smiles and dodging wandering hands. "You new here?" A voice cut through the noise like a blade, low and smooth. I turned, locking eyes with a man standing behind the bar. Not Marco, who had vanished somewhere in the back, but someone younger, maybe 35, his black hair slicked back, his face chiseled like it belonged on a magazine cover, forearms flexing beneath rolled-up sleeves. But it was his eyes that held me captive, dark as midnight, burning with an intensity that stole my breath. "Started last week?" he asked. His tone professional, though something beneath it wavered, and I struggled to steady my heartbeat. "Samantha Harper," I replied quietly, watching the way his hands moved, practiced, deliberate. "Samantha," he repeated, as if tasting my name, never offering his own. I should have turned away, gone to check on my tables, but something rooted me there, maybe the way other staff seemed to steer clear of him, or how the security guards near the door straightened when he glanced their way. "Your tables are waiting," he finally said, placing the last glass onto my tray. Our hands brushed, a spark shot up my arm. His skin was warm, the contact lasting just long enough to make me stammer a thank you before hurrying off, still feeling his gaze burning into my back. "Before we move on to part 2, if you're still listening, tell us where you're tuning in from. Somewhere out there in the world, let us know how Samantha Harper's story reached you. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, so you won't miss the emotional and gripping stories we bring every day. Your support keeps us going, telling stories of ordinary people caught in extraordinary moments. Stay with us for part 2, when Samantha finds herself standing at the edge between fear, desire, and the unforgettable gaze of Lucas. I bent down to lift the tray again, weaving carefully between chattering tables, laughter mingling with the clinking of glasses that echoed beneath the haze of alcohol. Marco was still hunched over the bar, muttering short, irritated commands that pushed me to move faster. At a nearby table, 5 middle-aged men watched me pass, their eyes drifting, smiles forced. I lowered my head and returned a polite, strained smile, trying to stay calm when a hand brushed against my hip. A shiver ran through me, but I kept walking, praying no one noticed. Another customer, clearly drunk, swayed as he lifted his glass, his words slurred as he tried to draw me into small talk, flashing a sloppy grin. I took a deep breath, forced a gentle smile, and told him I had other tables to serve before turning away, my fingers trembling. Marco's voice thundered again from across the room, calling out orders with sharp frustration that tightened my throat. I nodded quickly, moving with precision so the drinks wouldn't spill. A woman at the corner table waved me over, asking softly to change her order. I smiled, nodded, jotting it down, trying to appear calm and capable while quickening my pace. When I approached the drunk man again, he reached for my arm, his words slurred. "Don't go, just a minute." My pulse pounded, my stomach clenched with the urge to scream, but I kept my voice steady, repeating that I couldn't, gently pulling my hand free before stepping back toward the bar. The fabric of my shirt clung damp against my back, the smell of liquor and smoke filling my lungs until my head felt light. And yet, through it all, Lucas's eyes were there watching. He didn't just look, he seemed to understand the weight of being scrutinized, tested, and forced to defend yourself in a world where men held power through nothing more than a glance or a smile. When I set the tray down, Marco muttered something about my pace. I nodded, retreating without a word, dodging the stares of drunken patrons while trying to steady my heartbeat. A cocktail glass shattered on the floor, the crash drew every eye. I crouched to gather the shards, my hands shaking. When I looked up, Lucas was there again, unmoving, his dark eyes steady, carrying a kind of unspoken protection. Fear and curiosity tangled inside me, freezing me for a breath before I reminded myself to move, to keep working, taking orders, serving drinks, drifting through the pulse of music that crawled up my spine and the heavy air of whiskey and perfume. By the time I escaped the last of the restless tables and made it back to the bar, I could feel the sweat on my palms soaking through the apron. My shift was far from over, but something about the way Lucas had looked at me made it impossible to breathe normally. That night, I realized, wasn't just about the noise or the drinks, it was about something far more unexpected that had just begun to unfold. At last, after a long night of forced laughter and searching eyes, I left the bar and stepped into the cold Boston air. A light rain fell, soaking my hair and the thin fabric of my coat, but I barely noticed. My mind was still reeling from the dark, piercing eyes of Lucas Carter and the strange pull between fear and fascination that lingered long after he was gone. As I walked toward my small apartment, the empty streets shimmered under the streetlights, their reflections gliding across the wet pavement. Each click of my worn heels on the sidewalk reminded me of the physical exhaustion spreading through my body. When I finally unlocked the door and stepped inside, I collapsed onto the old sofa, hands trembling as I pulled out a stack of bills and my notebook. The clock read nearly 1 a.m. In front of me lay a mountain of debt, 2 months' rent, unpaid, overdue utility bills, a credit card over its limit, and the rising cost of groceries that barely stretched through the week. I began to calculate, flipping through each bill, every number landing like a blow to my chest, stirring a mixture of anxiety and helplessness. My past flickered before me. 3 months earlier, I had been a financial analyst at Donovan & Associates, a respected firm I had given everything to. I remembered the moment I decided to report the irregularities in the company's ledgers, believing I was doing the right thing, only to be fired on the spot. My reputation was shattered. Word spread fast, and no firm in the city would even consider my resume. Everything unraveled so quickly, my confidence crushed, my savings drained until I was jobless, drowning in debt, fighting to survive alone in Boston. I glanced at a scrap of paper with my dwindling bank balance and began calculating how long I could stretch what remained, skipping meals, cutting every expense, living each day under the tight grip of survival. In the silence of that tiny apartment, the weight of solitude pressed against my chest. I felt the mix of exhaustion and despair, fear of what lay ahead, and yet an inexplicable reluctance to quit the bar job that drained me nightly. Perhaps because somewhere in that dim, chaotic place, the image of Lucas still lingered, his dark eyes watching me with a kind of understanding I couldn't explain. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes for a moment, trying to silence the storm of numbers and memories. But his face appeared again, calm and unreadable, as if he could see straight through my anxiety. I told myself I had to find a way out of this, a better job, a second chance, but with my name blacklisted and the weight of debt pressing in, the thought felt almost impossible. Each idea for a solution tangled itself in worry, fatigue, and fear, until I was left staring at the ceiling, realizing I was both fragile and resilient at once, standing at a crossroads where one wrong choice could ruin everything. Sitting on that worn-out sofa, surrounded by bills and silence, my heart pounded with tension and a strange anticipation. A part of me couldn't stop thinking about Lucas, his gaze, the flicker of something dangerous and kind in the same breath, like a faint light in the fog, hinting that something unexpected might soon arrive, something that could pull me out of this chaos. I sat there, knees drawn to my chest, hands shaking as I held another unpaid bill, feeling both trapped and yearning, and deep down, I knew that this night, beneath the exhaustion and fear, was only the beginning of something mysterious waiting just beyond the rain. I had just left my apartment, stepping into the dark, empty streets of Boston. A fine drizzle fell, soaking my hair and weighing down my thin coat, while the thought of mounting debt pressed against my chest. Each step on the cold, wet pavement echoed my loneliness and helplessness. I drew a deep breath, telling myself I would head straight to the grocery store for a few necessities before going home. But I had barely walked half a mile when I heard footsteps behind me, steady, quick, and closing in. My heart began to pound. I tightened my grip on my bag, a chill running down my spine as I quickened my pace. But the footsteps followed faster, the sound of breathing close enough to prove it wasn't my imagination. "Hey, wait up!" A man's voice slurred through the rain, rough and reeking of alcohol. I knew that voice instantly. Jimmy, a regular at the bar, the kind who flirted too easily and never knew when to stop. Tonight, he sounded drunk and unpredictable. I shook my head, forcing calm into my trembling voice even as my pulse raced. "I'm tired, Jimmy. I just want to go home. Please go." I kept walking, trying to sound firm, but he stepped closer, grabbing my arm roughly. His tone turned from pleading to something darker, reckless. "Don't be like that. Just one more drink. I know a place that's still open." A shiver ran through me as panic clawed at my throat. The street was deserted, no one in sight. My mind raced, weighing the chances of breaking free, when suddenly a sleek black car appeared at the far end of the street. Its headlights sliced through the rain, flooding the pavement with white light. Jimmy froze, blinking against the glare. The rear door swung open, and a deep voice rolled out, calm, powerful, impossible to ignore. "Is there a problem here?" I knew that voice immediately. Lucas Carter, the bartender who had left me breathless the night before. My heart slammed harder, caught between fear and disbelief. Jimmy stepped back, his bravado crumbling, while Lucas emerged from the car, tall, broad-shouldered, his dark eyes cutting through the mist as he fixed them on Jimmy. One glance from him was enough to drain the fight out of the drunk man. "She's with me," Lucas said, his voice low and steady, every word weighted with quiet command. There was danger in his tone, not loud or violent, but absolute. Jimmy's mouth fell open, his hands trembling as he backed away, subdued not by threat but by the sheer force of presence before him. Lucas placed a hand lightly on my arm, firm yet gentle, and warmth spread through me like a current. "Get in the car, Samantha. I'll take you home," he said, his tone leaving no room for refusal, yet carrying a strange comfort I couldn't name. I drew in a shaky breath, overwhelmed by fear and something else, something magnetic, and obeyed, stepping into the open door of the car. As I sank into the seat, I looked back through the rain-blurred window. Jimmy stood frozen under the streetlight, confusion etched across his face. In that moment, I realized Lucas hadn't just rescued me, he had taken control of the entire scene with effortless authority. The power in him was palpable, terrifying, yet protective, and my chest tightened with a confusing blend of relief and awe. Lucas was not just a bartender. Beneath that calm demeanor and those fathomless eyes was a force I didn't understand. And as the car began to move, the rain tapping softly against the windshield, I sat in silence, clutching my bag, my pulse still racing. Every glance at him stirred a deeper question within me. Who was this man really? This Lucas Carter who had stepped out of the shadows like both a savior and a storm. The car glided through the quiet streets of Boston, the steady rhythm of rain tapping against the windshield as the glow of streetlights streaked across the glass. I sat still, my hands gripping my bag, my body trembling from the shock of what had just happened, from the way Lucas Carter had stepped out of the night and into my chaos. I still couldn't quite believe what I'd seen, or the way my heart refused to calm, beating with a mix of fear, fascination, and something dangerously close to awe. Lucas said little as he drove, his composure absolute, one hand resting lightly on the wheel, the other occasionally shifting gears with an effortless confidence. Every so often, his dark eyes flicked toward me, not just watching, but reading, as if every unspoken thought was visible to him. When the car turned into the narrow street leading to my apartment complex, his voice broke the silence, deep and smooth but carrying a quiet authority. "Samantha," he said, "you're getting yourself tangled up with the wrong kind of people. I want to help you. I know life hasn't been easy lately, the debt, the pressure, and I can give you a way out." My fingers tightened around the damp fabric of my apron as I looked up at him, startled by the certainty in his tone. There was something in his voice, a weight, a promise that made me feel both protected and uncertain, as though safety itself came at a price I couldn't yet name. When the car stopped in front of my building, I exhaled shakily. The rain had plastered my hair to my forehead, my thin coat clinging to my skin. But Lucas was already out of the car, opening my door with quiet courtesy. The gesture was simple, yet charged with something unspoken respect, and an undercurrent of something I couldn't define. Inside the elevator, he pressed the button for my floor. His gaze stayed on me, steady and unreadable, making it hard to breathe. "I can't change everything for you overnight," he said, "but I can keep you safe from what's coming. I can pull you out of this mess if you'll let me." I looked down at my hands, torn between fear and intrigue. His words felt like both a warning and a spell, a promise wrapped in danger. I wanted to hide, to disappear into the warmth he carried, even as reason whispered for distance. When we stepped out of the elevator, he spoke again, softer this time. "You don't owe me anything now, but if you ever need help, ask. I just want you safe." Each word fell with the certainty of a heartbeat, and I couldn't look away. It wasn't just the sense of safety, it was the gravity of him, the way he filled the space without crowding it. At my door, I fumbled for my keys, my heart racing as he handed me my bag. His touch was brief, his skin warm, the scent of his cologne dark, subtle, grounding, lingering between us. I wanted to ask him 1,000 questions, but the words caught in my throat. "If you need anything, just call," he said before stepping back, his voice low, steady, final. I could only nod, caught between gratitude and an unease that felt almost like desire. When the door closed behind him, I stood in the small apartment, my pulse still drumming in my chest. The air felt charged, alive with what had just happened. Lucas wasn't merely the man who had pulled me out of danger. He was something else entirely, a force wrapped in calm, a mystery I couldn't resist. And as the rain continued to fall outside, I knew the night had changed everything. A new chapter had begun, one written in the language of power, safety, and a curiosity I could no longer silence. The next morning, I woke up in my small apartment, the fatigue of the long night and my encounter with Lucas Carter still clinging faintly to my shoulders, though somewhere beneath it pulsed a quiet thrill at the thought of the new job he had helped me secure. The charcoal gray suit I had hurriedly bought the week before fit better now after months of skipping meals and saving every dollar. My hair neatly brushed, makeup subtle enough to look both professional and natural. I took a deep breath before stepping out, carrying with me a rare sense of determination. Blackstone Financial Group occupied the top 3 floors of a skyscraper in downtown Boston, its vast glass facade catching the pale morning light. The atmosphere was both imposing and elegant, and as I approached the entrance, I felt small yet brimming with expectation. Inside, the receptionist greeted me with a practiced smile, her tone polite but clear. "Miss Harper, you're expected on the 42nd floor. I'll escort you up." I nodded, a blend of nervousness and relief washing over me at being welcomed like someone who mattered so different from the wary glances and dismissive stares I'd grown used to at the bar and other odd jobs before this. The private elevator opened, and I stepped inside with Gerald, a tall security guard whose posture was formal, but whose eyes held a trace of warmth. He pressed the button, and the elevator began its smooth ascent. The steady hum of the machinery filled the silence as I caught my reflection in the mirror like Dorsey, in my new suit, looking both unfamiliar and newly confident. When the doors slid open, soft light greeted me. The office was a blend of understated sophistication and calm authority, decorated in shades of gray and pale blue, modern art on the walls, every surface exuding quiet power and discipline. Following the receptionist's guidance, I walked through the sleek corridor, my heart thrumming with anticipation as I took in the scale and beauty of the place. At the end of the hallway, a large door opened, revealing the office of Charles Bennett, director of the private client division. He rose to greet me, silver-haired, sharp-featured, his eyes keen but kind, his voice deep and measured with an unmistakable authority. "Miss Harper, please, have a seat," he said, and I understood immediately that this was the man who would test not only my competence, but also my integrity and resilience in the months ahead. The interview began with questions about my professional background, technical skills, past challenges, and the ways I had handled them. I answered honestly, careful not to mention Lucas, focusing instead on what I could bring to the firm. Each word felt deliberate, each response a balance between sincerity and self-control. My pulse quickened every time Mr. Bennett lifted his gaze from his notes, assessing me in silence before jotting something down. He nodded occasionally, emphasizing the importance of honesty and professional ethics values that cut deep, reminding me of my past at Donovan and Associates and the reason I had lost everything there. Yet this time, it felt different. Here was a chance rooted in fairness, transparency, and renewal. As the meeting drew to a close, Mr. Bennett smiled faintly. "Miss Harper, I believe we could work well together," he said. Relief coursed through me, mingled with excitement for what lay ahead, the chance to prove myself, to rebuild not just a career, but a life. I left his office, walking through the wide hall where the sound of keyboards clicking, phones ringing, and low, purposeful conversations filled the air. For the first time in months, I felt part of something larger, a world that made sense, where I could earn, belong, and begin again after so much struggle. I paused for a moment, closing my eyes, taking in a deep breath, and telling myself that today marked the first step of a new chapter, one no longer defined by the past but by possibility. And as I turned toward the tall glass window at the end of the corridor, the faint reflection of Lucas seemed to flicker in my mind, reminding me that a new life full of opportunity, power, and a quiet, dangerous allure was waiting just ahead. That afternoon, just as I finished my first day getting acquainted with the new environment at Blackstone Financial Group, my phone buzzed a message from an unfamiliar number. Sam, I sent you a small gift. I opened my apartment door and found a small box placed neatly in front of the elevator. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a tiny charm shaped like a key, and a folded note that read, "For new beginnings." My heart skipped a beat, startled and touched at once, warmth spreading through me as my eyes lingered on the familiar signature at the bottom, Lucas Carter. Before I could steady my breath, another message appeared. "Sam, tonight I'd like to invite you to dinner, just the two of us. The car will come for you." My pulse quickened, caught between excitement and unease, fear and an undeniable pull that made refusal impossible. When the sleek black car arrived, Lucas stepped out simple but immaculate in a white shirt and dark slacks, his quiet smile contrasting with the depth of his dark, unreadable eyes. When he opened the door for me, the gesture carried both safety and something far more dangerous. My heartbeat raced as he motioned for me to sit, every movement deliberate, confident, exuding quiet command that both unsettled and fascinated me. During the drive, he said little, his hands steady on the wheel, eyes occasionally flicking toward me with a kind of attentive stillness that made me feel both observed and protected, as if he knew more than he said. When the car stopped in front of a discreet riverside restaurant, no sign, no crowd, its golden lights soft and intimate, he led me through a private entrance. Each step he took seemed to shape the space around him, composed, controlled, yet never overbearing, and I followed, caught between admiration and nervous anticipation. The private dining room was small, elegantly arranged. Candles flickered gently, red wine already poured, the scent of something warm and subtle hung in the air. I sat down, my fingers trembling slightly against the polished table, my heart beat loud in my chest. Lucas took the seat across from me, his gaze steady, attentive, almost searching, as if reading me without a word. Dinner began, and he spoke with quiet ease about travel, about taste, about the small details of life that revealed more than they concealed. His tone was both personal and commanding, drawing me closer even as I became acutely aware of the invisible power he carried. Each smile, each pause, every subtle movement made the air between us thrum with something electric, something dangerously alive. When the wine was poured a second time, his eyes lowered, meeting mine with quiet intensity. "Sam," he said, his voice low but warm, "I know you've been under pressure. I just want you to know you're not alone. I want to help you find peace again." My breath caught, the words landing softly yet with weight. I didn't know how to answer. I only knew that something in me yielded the part that had been tense, guarded, lonely for too long. The final course arrived, and our conversation shifted to work, to principles, to the kind of values that built trust. Lucas listened with genuine interest, his hand brushing mine briefly as he reached for his glass, a touch so light yet charged that it sent a quiet current through me. My heart stuttered, caught between composure and the growing awareness that this man was not just a protector, he was power itself, cloaked in calm and allure, impossible to look away from. When dinner ended, he rose and opened the door for me, his dark eyes holding mine with that same steady gravity. "Sam," he said, voice low and sure, "let me take you home." I nodded, my pulse racing, that familiar blend of safety and danger washing over me as I followed him back to the car. On the drive, he said little, yet every movement, the way his hands gripped the wheel, the way his gaze lingered for a second too long, carried the same quiet dominance that had drawn me in from the start. And I knew, as the city lights blurred past the window, that tonight was not merely a dinner. It was the beginning of something else entirely, a connection that lived somewhere between danger and desire, safety and surrender, power and longing, something that both frightened and entranced me, pulling me into a world I had no intention of escaping. As the car rolled back through the rain-washed streets of Boston, a fine drizzle continued to fall, tracing delicate lines across the windshield. I sat silently, my hand still holding the wineglass now gone cold, my gaze unfocused on the passing lights beyond the window. My thoughts were tangled, part fascination, part unease caught between the lingering spell of Lucas Carter and the pulse of something I couldn't name. Throughout the drive, he said little, only glancing at me now and then, with those dark, steady eyes, the kind of gaze that felt both tender and commanding, making it impossible to look away. There was safety in his presence, yes, but also an intensity that left me breathless. When we stopped in front of my small apartment building, he turned toward me, his voice low and smooth yet edged with quiet authority. "Sam," he said, "perhaps you don't fully understand who I am or the family I come from, The tone, gentle yet powerful, was not a warning but a statement of fact, the kind that carried the weight of something larger than words. I met his eyes, curiosity and caution warring inside me, and felt the tension of his presence fill the narrow space between us. Every movement, every faint smile seemed measured, controlled, revealing the precision of someone used to command. "My family has been in Boston for generations," he continued. "My grandfather built the foundation. My father expanded it, diversifying the business. Some of it perfectly legitimate, some of it less so." His voice lingered in the air, not defensive, not boastful, simply honest, and heavy with implication. I felt a chill run through me, realizing that behind his calm composure was a quiet, dangerous kind of power. As he spoke, I studied him closely, the steadiness in his tone, the stillness in his posture, the way every word seemed to balance truth and restraint. Lucas was not merely an attractive man. He was someone whose wealth and influence reached far beyond what I had imagined. Someone who moved through the city with invisible authority. My pulse quickened, a mix of fear and fascination taking hold. He went on, speaking of family principles, of loyalty and protection, of how his father had taught him that some matters required discretion, that not all problems could be solved within the law. His words were deliberate, each one carrying the weight of experience and danger. I could feel it, the thrill and the risk blending together. "I won't ask you to be part of anything you don't want," he said finally, his voice softer now, though no less certain. "But you should know the influence my family holds could open doors for you. In your career, in your life." I sat frozen, torn between the allure of what he offered and the awareness of the blurred line he walked between what was right and what was not. When I stepped out of the car and locked the door behind me, his gaze followed, calm yet unyielding. Even without words, the weight of his world pressed around me, foreign, magnetic, perilous, and strangely protective. Standing in the quiet of my small apartment, I could still feel his presence, the scent of rain and cologne lingering in the air. My heart beat hard in my chest as realization sank in. Lucas was not simply the man who had rescued me that night. He was power, wealth, legacy, and influence woven into one mesmerizing figure, whose very existence hinted at secrets and shadows. The silence between us deepened until the only sounds were the soft patter of rain and the distant hum of the city. He reached out, resting a hand gently on my shoulder. "Sam," he said, his gaze unwavering, "I know you've been through more than you let on. I want you to know you can trust me. I want to protect you, and I want you to understand the kind of strength I carry." Each word sank into me, steady and deliberate, wrapping around me like a quiet storm. His touch was warm, his eyes impossibly deep, his voice a blend of comfort and command, and in that moment, I understood that everything had shifted. Power, money, protection, and desire each pulsed in the same rhythm, drawing me toward a world I barely understood, one both dangerous and irresistible. I stood there, my heart pounding, caught between fear and yearning, realizing that my encounter with Lucas had opened more than just a door to safety. It had opened a path into a realm of influence, wealth, and mystery I had never imagined. A world that both terrified and enthralled me. One late afternoon, just as I returned to my apartment after a long day at Blackstone Financial Group, the doorbell rang repeatedly. My heart leapt, anxiety rising fast. I opened the door and saw Detective Kincaid standing there, a middle-aged man in a worn gray suit, posture upright, eyes sharp enough to pierce through me. I instinctively took a small step back, caught between caution and curiosity. He didn't speak at first, simply studied me in silence, long enough for me to sense that something serious was about to unfold. After a moment, his voice came low and firm. "Sam, I know you've met Lucas Carter, the man you believe is just a handsome bartender." Each word landed heavy, his tone filled with authority, and a chill ran the length of my spine. My lips parted, my pulse hammering. "Detective Kincaid, I don't understand," I stammered, my voice trembling. He drew in a slow breath, his gaze unwavering, then said, "That man is not just a bartender. He belongs to one of Boston's oldest and most powerful families, wealthy, influential, and dangerous. If you're not careful, you'll be drawn into a world with no way out." My heart seemed to stop for a beat, fear and confusion surging at once. I stepped back, trying to convince myself he was exaggerating, but there was no doubt in his eyes, no hint of deception. He continued, his tone measured, deliberate. The Carter family has been under investigation for years. The cases connected to them are discreet, well-shielded, and evidence rarely survives. And the women who've gotten too close, many were never seen again. His words cut through my naivety like a blade, and I felt my heartbeat quicken, my breath faltering, panic and disbelief tangling inside me. I swallowed hard, my voice barely steady. "Are you certain?" I asked. Donovan nodded gravely. "Absolutely. I haven't shared this with anyone else, but you need to know. Lucas is powerful, wealthy, connected, and not always on the right side of the law." I froze, torn between fear and fascination, unsure whether to trust the detective or hold on to the image of Lucas as the man who had once saved me. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "If you want to stay safe, keep your distance. Avoid him. We'll be watching your movements not to frighten you, but to protect you." I took a shaky breath, the tension in the room thickening, every glance, every shift in Donovan's expression pressing down with the weight of truth. "Sam," he said quietly, "I'm not asking you to do anything, just to listen to understand that you're standing at a dangerous crossroads." My chest tightened, my heart pounding so loud it drowned the sound of the rain outside. His gaze was unwavering, filled with the kind of conviction that made denial impossible. Lucas's charm and authority suddenly seemed darker, heavier, far from harmless. I stood speechless, unsure how to respond. Donovan finally stepped back, his voice softening. "Think carefully about every move you make, Sam. Not everyone who enters your life does so with good intentions. And Lucas, he's one of those you need to consider very carefully." My pulse raced, fear and curiosity twisting together. His words felt like a verdict, a warning that tonight and the days ahead might shape everything that followed. He handed me a business card. "If anything happens, anything at all, call me." I nodded, my throat dry, a strange mixture of relief and dread taking root inside me. As the detective turned to leave, his footsteps fading down the hall, I stood frozen, shaken by the realization that I had just been warned and that perhaps, without knowing it, I had already stepped into something I could no longer walk away from. The air felt heavier, the world of Lucas Carter suddenly larger, darker, and more dangerous than I had ever imagined. A maze of power, wealth, and secrets into which I had unknowingly taken my first step. After Donovan left, I sat motionless on the sofa, the detective's business card still clutched in my hand, my heart pounding and my thoughts tangled in a swirl of fear and fascination. His warning echoed in my mind, heavy and disorienting, as fragments of past conversations with Lucas surfaced, particularly the one about Sophia Lane, the woman he said was gone. The name alone stirred something inside me, a flicker of unease mixed with curiosity. The way Lucas's expression had darkened when he mentioned her now felt like a shadow falling across my memory, familiar yet elusive. I frowned, a dull ache tightening in my chest as I wondered if Sophia Lane had truly been the only woman he had ever cared about, or if there was something deeper, something hidden beneath the quiet power of his family name. My hands trembled as I opened my laptop, my breath shallow, each keystroke carrying both anticipation and dread. I typed her name, Sophia Lane, into the search bar, and within seconds, the screen filled with old reports and forgotten archives, grainy photos of a young woman who had disappeared 5 years earlier, her face blurred at gallery openings and charity events, her story ending without conclusion. Every detail cut into me like a blade, sharp and cold, my heartbeat quickening as fear and curiosity intertwined. I leaned closer to the screen, comparing each image to the fragments Lucas had once described: the curve of her face, the shade of her hair, the quiet sadness in her eyes, and a shiver ran through me. Was Lucas telling the truth about her, or hiding something far darker? I closed my eyes for a moment, drawing in a deep breath to steady myself, but my thoughts spun wildly, caught between disbelief and the urge to uncover the truth. I expanded the search, digging through old reports on the Carter family, the whispered controversies Donovan had mentioned, the network of associates, the women linked to Lucas across the years. Each name, each headline pulled me deeper, both terrified and entranced, realizing I had only brushed the surface of a world of power and secrecy far beyond my reach. My pulse thudded in my ears. Then I found an old photograph, Sophia Lane standing beside a young man, his expression firm yet intimate, protective. My chest tightened. Was that Lucas, years younger, or someone else entirely? The ambiguity gnawed at me, the mystery growing denser, almost alive. I wanted to look away, yet I couldn't. My fingers trembled as I jotted down every detail, my body tense, caught between fear and the intoxicating pull of discovery. I searched through public records, school archives, workplace directories, every trace connected to Sophia Lane, unable to stop even as exhaustion set in. Each new fragment, each name, each date felt like stepping deeper into a labyrinth made of wealth, power, and carefully buried truths. My heart pounded faster, the air around me thick with tension. I knew that if I could uncover Sophia Lane's story, I might also uncover the truth about Lucas and what he had been hiding behind that calm, commanding gaze. The realization both thrilled and frightened me. My eyes stayed locked on the screen, my hand shaking as I wrote down each clue. The line between curiosity and danger blurred, and I could feel myself slipping towards something irreversible. My fascination was no longer just with Sophia Lane, but with Lucas himself, with the empire he represented, the legacy of power and secrecy that surrounded him like a living shadow. I felt drawn to it, terrified and spellbound all at once, knowing I was crossing a threshold I might never return from. My pulse raced, my breath quickened, and I understood too late that I was walking a narrow edge between safety and peril. Yet I couldn't stop. The need to know had already taken root, and it burned through me, fierce and consuming, pulling me toward the hidden truth waiting just beyond reach. All morning, I sat in front of the computer screen, my eyes strained and hands trembling as I scrolled through public records, old articles, social media, and Boston news archives. Every fragment of information about Sophia Lane I discovered was carefully written down, my heartbeat racing with a mix of anticipation and dread, as though I were wandering deeper into a labyrinth with no clear exit. Then, unexpectedly, I stumbled upon an old social media account belonging to Sophia. It hadn't been active in years, yet the few remaining photos and her last post made my heart stop. Sophia was smiling in a picture taken at an art exhibition, one dated just last year. The sight struck me like lightning. Was this proof she was still alive, quietly building a new life, or was it a cruel deception? My breath quickened as I dug deeper, tracing her old email addresses, phone numbers, and contacts. Each image, each mention of art galleries and creative circles, suggested that Sophia Lane hadn't vanished mysteriously, but may have chosen to disappear to live under another name, in another world. The realization sent a chill through me, a pulse of fear mixed with excitement, hope, colliding with anxiety. Donovan's warning about Lucas echoed in my head, sharper now. If Sophia was alive, if she had escaped, then knowing this could put me in danger. Part of me wanted to reach out, to uncover the truth, while another part recoiled, afraid that if Lucas ever discovered my search, there would be consequences I couldn't predict. My hands trembled on the keyboard, eyes locked on Sophia's final photograph, my pulse thudding in my ears. Every beat felt like a countdown to a choice I wasn't ready to make. I could feel it clearly. My life was balanced on a knife's edge between safety and truth, between curiosity and risk, between trusting Lucas and keeping my distance. I reread old articles about the Carter family. Every name, every accusation, every whisper of scandal Donovan had hinted at. It became increasingly clear that Sophia Lane might be the key to understanding Lucas, to unmasking the intricate web of power and secrecy surrounding his family. The thought terrified and thrilled me at once. I could still see Lucas's face in my mind, the calm, the control, the strange tenderness at dinner, and the combination of protection and danger that clung to him like a second skin. The more I thought, the clearer it became. By pursuing Sophia's trail, I was stepping further into his world, a world that shimmered with both fascination and threat. I asked myself what would happen if I followed this path. Would Lucas find out? And if he did, how would he react? My heart pounded harder, my breath shallow, the weight of the decision pressing down like a stone. Still, I clicked forward, opening more pages, chasing more leads. Fear mingled with curiosity, dread with desire. Each post, each photograph, each sentence I uncovered seemed to come alive, urging me toward a decision I could no longer delay. And in that moment, staring at the flickering screen, I realized there was no turning back. The clue to Sophia Lane was right in front of me, and whatever I chose next would determine everything: my safety, my future, and my fragile connection to Lucas Carter. My pulse thundered in my chest, my breath quick and shallow, as the room grew heavy with the weight of unseen danger and irresistible intrigue. I knew then that the secrets I was chasing would not only change how I saw Lucas, they would change everything about the life I thought I understood. The next day, After finishing a long, intense shift at Blackstone Financial Group, I received a message from Lucas. His tone was calm, but there was weight behind his words. He asked me to come to his private apartment to talk. My pulse quickened, a knot of tension and anticipation tightening in my chest. I told myself this might be a chance to finally understand the Carter family and the man himself. When I stepped into the apartment, the warm light and faint scent of candles steadied me slightly. Lucas stood by the kitchen counter, posture straight, exuding both control and intimacy. He smiled. "Sam," he said softly, "I know what happened yesterday left you unsettled, and I want to explain more about my family and what I've been doing to make our business legitimate." I sat down, my heart pounding, caught between curiosity and apprehension. Lucas began to talk about the Carter legacy, his grandfather's traditional ventures, his father's expansions into more diverse industries, some legitimate, others existing in the gray space between power and law. Every word carried weight, the kind that both frightened and fascinated me. He spoke about taking over much of the family operations and his effort to move them toward legality, real estate investments, import businesses, financial consulting, transparent on paper, yet still anchored by discreet ties to older, shadowed dealings that preserved influence and control. I listened, transfixed, my heart beating faster with every detail, aware that his voice carried not only confession but command. "My goal isn't to intimidate anyone," he continued. "It's to protect what's mine, my family, and the few people I trust." He looked directly at me. "Sam, I would never ask you to be part of anything illegal. I only want you to understand the difference between what's lawful and what I have to do to keep everything in balance." I nodded, my throat dry, relief and tension warring inside me. It became clear that Lucas was a man who didn't just hold power, he understood it, shaped it, contained it. As he spoke, his eyes never left me. They followed every flicker of reaction, every shift in my expression, as though he could read me effortlessly. His gestures, his smile, even the pauses in his voice were measured, deliberate. I felt drawn in and unnerved at once, the quiet control he radiated both comforting and dangerous. He described the transformations he had set in motion: high-end real estate developments, luxury import contracts, new systems to make the family finances more transparent and less vulnerable to legal scrutiny. I could see the world he inhabited, its sharp contrasts between refinement and risk. Every detail seemed to blur the line between safety and danger, security and temptation. When he finally stopped speaking, the silence between us deepened. Lucas's expression turned serious. "Sam," he said, "I want you to know that even though this life looks dangerous from the outside, I have most of it under control. Any choice you make involving me will be safe as long as you stay aware and cautious." I took a deep breath, the tension in the air pressing down on me. His words felt like both reassurance and warning, a promise wrapped in caution. I sat still, my pulse drumming, unable to look away. In that quiet moment, I understood that what Lucas was offering was more than an explanation. It was an invitation into his world, one built on discipline, responsibility, and quiet power. His attempt to legitimize his empire was not only a move of strategy but of protection, a way to shield those he cared for from the chaos beneath the surface. I felt torn between curiosity and fear, drawn to the calm precision with which he commanded his life. His words wrapped around me like a veil, protective, magnetic, and impossible to ignore. And as the silence lingered between us, I realized I was standing on the threshold of something vast and uncertain, a world of control, danger, and loyalty that both terrified and compelled me to step closer. That evening, as the city lights spilled through the windows of Lucas's apartment, my heart began to race, my breath shallow and uneven, caught between anticipation and tension. He stood near the kitchen table, his gaze dark and steady, his movements calm yet charged with authority. "Sam," he said, his voice low and deliberate, "I want us to talk openly about everything that's been happening between us." I sat down, my pulse quickening, a swirl of nervousness and expectation tightening in my chest. There was something paradoxically soothing and dangerous in the way he spoke, in the quiet gravity that seemed to fill every pause. Lucas rested his hand on the table, his gesture firm, controlled, yet unhurried, and his eyes never left mine. I could feel his presence radiate through the room, a quiet storm of power and restraint. It struck me then that whatever was forming between us wasn't ordinary, it was something magnetic and perilous, a connection that felt as intoxicating as it was uncertain. He began to speak about why he had entered my life, how long he had been watching over me, protecting me. "Sam," he said softly, "I don't want you to be afraid, but I can't allow anything to happen to you." His words sent a pulse through my body, sharp and tender at once, like a current running beneath my skin. We talked for a while about ordinary things, but there was nothing ordinary in the way he looked at me, or in the way his voice wrapped around each word, calm and intentional. Every glance, every pause seemed to draw me closer, until the air between us felt alive with tension and trust, fear and attraction. When our eyes met, I felt the weight of his dual nature, his strength and his gentleness, his power and his vulnerability, all converging into something that both frightened and fascinated me. His hand brushed my shoulder, light yet firm enough to make my heart stutter. "Sam," he murmured, "I need you to know that every decision I make is to protect you." The certainty in his tone steadied me even as it unsettled me, and I found myself torn between comfort and unease, between trust and the fear of surrendering to something I couldn't fully understand. He spoke of the pressures he faced from his family, the delicate balance between power and emotion he struggled to maintain. His words painted a world that was at once dangerous and deeply human, a world that terrified me and drew me in all the same. As the light dimmed, Lucas gestured for me to sit closer. My pulse quickened again, my breath caught. When I leaned against him, a strange calm enveloped me, a warmth that felt both safe and uncertain. I realized then that whatever this was between us, it was testing the boundaries of trust, pulling me into a space where fear and desire were indistinguishable. His hand brushed against mine, deliberate, lingering. "Sam," he said gently, his voice carrying both command and tenderness, "I don't want you to be afraid. I just need you to trust me." Each word settled into me like a promise, stirring something deep and fragile. We shared a glass of wine, speaking in low voices about our pasts, our struggles. Each story felt intimate yet weighted, charged with an unspoken understanding that this closeness came with consequence. I found myself trusting him more than I meant to, drawn to his calm and the quiet force behind it, aware that every moment carried both comfort and danger. Later, as the night deepened, Lucas led me to the balcony. The city shimmered below us, 1,000 lights reflected in the glass. "Sam," he said softly, "I don't just want to protect you, I want you to know that I trust you." I turned to him, my heart trembling, a mixture of fear and faith rising in my chest. It was a strange, fragile equilibrium, safety tangled with uncertainty, affection shadowed by power. In that moment, I realized I was no longer standing outside his world but already inside it, drawn in by its gravity, its danger, its impossible allure. Every breath, every heartbeat seemed to echo the same truth, that what bound us together was as beautiful as it was perilous. After leaving the balcony, I stepped back into the apartment, my mind in turmoil, my heart still beating fast, caught between excitement and unease, between desire and fear. I sank into the sofa, staring into the empty air, trying to untangle my thoughts about Lucas, about the power and fascination he carried with him, about the moments of closeness that made me feel both protected and wary, both trusting and cautious. I wondered if opening my heart to him was worth it, if the feelings growing between us were truly safe, or merely a dangerous maze of emotion that could swallow me whole. My fingers trembled as I placed my hand on the table, my heartbeat echoing in my ears, each pulse reminding me that every choice from this moment on could alter the course of my life. I thought about Detective Donovan's warnings, about Sophia Lane, about the Carter family, their secrets, their reach, the shadow that seemed to follow Lucas wherever he went. The thought filled me with equal parts fear and curiosity. Loving Lucas, I realized, meant stepping into a world of danger I had never known before, one that thrilled and terrified me in equal measure. I remembered the night he had protected me in the street, the way his strength and tenderness intertwined, and how that intoxicating sense of safety was laced with the fear of being drawn too deep. Closing my eyes, I listened to the rhythm of my heartbeat, uneven, fast, reminding me that this love was anything but simple, that my next decision could decide both my safety and my happiness. My thoughts drifted to my new job at Blackstone, the stability it offered, the quiet dream of normalcy I had clung to after months of chaos, and how it all contrasted with Lucas, the danger, the power, the allure that defied logic. My heart felt torn between wanting to stay near him and needing to protect myself. I looked around the room, thinking of the private dinners, the subtle gifts, the way he created spaces that felt both safe and intoxicating. Trusting Lucas wasn't just a feeling, it was a risk, a wager between heart and reason, between love and survival. I took a deep breath, forcing my emotions into order, each inhale a reminder that every choice carried consequences. His words echoed in my mind about duty, control, and the price of power, and I knew I was standing at a crossroads, torn between faith and fear, between the comfort of his presence and the instinct to stay guarded. My emotions collided, sharp and restless, an uneasy harmony of tension and fascination. In that silence, I told myself that to open my heart completely would mean accepting the danger, the secrets, and the uncertainty that came with him. Yet it would also mean feeling something real, something raw and consuming, a love both powerful and perilous. My heart ached and warmed at the same time, my breath quickened, and the air around me felt alive with both worry and longing. I stood and walked toward the window, looking out at the glowing city lights, my eyes heavy with tension and wonder. I asked myself whether I had the courage to step into Lucas's world, to trust while staying alert, to love while keeping my guard. Fear and fascination blended into one pulse that echoed through me, steady and urgent. Every beat of my heart whispered the same truth, that my next choice mattered, that it carried both risk and desire, danger and beauty. And somewhere deep inside, I knew that part of me longed for the safety of reason, while another part, wild and trembling, was already falling toward the unknown. After we sat down beside each other, the air in the room felt heavy, charged with tension, the faint light from the ceiling lamp casting long shadows across the walls. My heart beat fast, each pulse sharp and uneven, a blend of curiosity, fear, and anticipation tightening in my chest. Lucas met my gaze directly. "Sam," he said, his voice deep and deliberate, "I think it's time you understand more about who I am and the power I hold." Each word was gentle but carried undeniable authority, pulling me in even as caution rose within me. My breath quickened, my throat tight. He confessed that the Carter family was not just wealthy, but deeply influential in the city. "Sam," he said quietly, "I control things most people don't even know exist. That power doesn't just earn respect, it protects what matters to me." Each detail he shared left me both awed and uneasy, drawn to his strength, yet wary of its reach. My pulse thudded hard, a reminder of how dangerous this man truly was. "Lucas," I whispered, "I'm both afraid and curious. Trusting you feels like stepping into something I can't fully see." Lucas reached out, his hand warm around mine, his dark eyes steady. "Sam," he said softly, "I don't want you to feel threatened, but I have to be honest, I'm a man with power, and I know how to use it, both to protect you and to keep order." His words were calm but edged with warning, at once reassuring and unsettling. I tried to steady my breathing, though sweat dampened my palms. "Lucas," I said, my voice trembling yet firm, "I need time to understand, to decide if I can trust you completely." He nodded slowly, eyes still fixed on mine. "Sam," he said, "I understand. I won't ask for blind trust. But I want you to know I've been nothing but truthful about my life, my influence, and what I'm capable of." His tone was both soothing and grave, wrapping the truth in tenderness and steel. Then he spoke of the decisions he'd made, the situations he'd controlled, the discreet ways the Carter family handled delicate matters. "Sam," he said, "I'm not hiding anything. I control everything around me, and you need to know that before you decide to move forward." Every word carried both gravity and seduction, filling the air with a tension I could almost taste. My breath caught in my throat. "Lucas," I whispered, "can I ever truly trust you, or am I just walking into a maze built on power and danger?" Lucas placed a hand on my shoulder, his touch light but commanding. "Sam," he said, "I won't pretend this will be simple, but I promise you will never be harmed if you choose to trust me." My heart clenched, torn between relief and fear, between thrill and apprehension. I realized then that opening my heart to him meant accepting risk, an intoxicating, perilous mix of dominance and desire. Every heartbeat felt like a warning and a temptation. In the thick silence that followed, Lucas's gaze never wavered. "Sam," he said, "I've hidden nothing from you, not my past, not my power. Now it's time for you to decide." His words lingered, magnetic and unsettling, the space between us charged with unspoken tension. My breath came uneven, my heart pounding hard against my ribs. I knew that whatever choice I made from this point on would shape everything that followed. Fear and fascination blurred into one, as I stood on the edge of trust and caution, love and danger, Inside me, one part longed to step fully into his world of power and mystery, while another clung to safety, trembling at the thought of what surrendering might cost. My pulse quickened, and I knew with piercing clarity that this decision, this moment, would change everything. After considering Lucas's admissions, my heart still raced, pounding with a mix of fear and fascination. I realized that what bound us was no longer mere attraction or curiosity. It had deepened into something more intricate, something both magnetic and perilous. We sat close together in the small room, the golden light from the ceiling lamp washing over us in a quiet glow. Every movement, every glance from Lucas sent a ripple through me, half tenderness, half command, his presence at once safe and dangerous, alluring and suffocating. When he leaned closer, resting his hand lightly on mine, I could feel the weight of both his strength and his gentleness. My pulse thundered, warning me of the risks woven into this strange spell between us. Each touch, each smile, each unspoken silence carried the shadow of danger, the thrill of secrecy. I knew that closeness to him meant opening myself completely, stepping into a world where love and power blurred until they were almost indistinguishable. "Sam," he said in that low, velvety voice, "you need to understand that what we have isn't like anything you've known before." His tone was calm yet commanding. I closed my eyes, breathing deeply, caught between relief and unease. Trusting him was a risk, one that drew me in, even as it warned me away. We began to share more of ourselves. Lucas spoke about his struggle to maintain control and protect his family. I told him about losing my job, about rebuilding myself from pieces of uncertainty. Every word between us pulsed with tension and warmth, every exchange balancing safety and danger. Beneath his gentleness, I could sense the gravity of his world, the edges of a life that demanded obedience, strength, and silence. When he placed his hand on my shoulder and looked at me with that steady, shadowed gaze, he said, "Sam, I'll never let harm touch you directly, but the world around us, it's unpredictable." His words both soothed and unsettled me, a promise laced with caution. I felt my throat tighten, my heartbeat stuttering in response. I understood then that every choice from this point forward would tether me to his realm of power, secrecy, and influence. Later, we walked together through the night, the sea breeze brushing against my face, cool and sharp. Each step on the pavement felt light, yet charged with tension. Beside him, I felt protected but never entirely safe. His eyes followed me closely. His gestures, whether a faint smile or a quiet glance, carried both reassurance and authority, each one reminding me of the risks I was walking toward. When we returned to his apartment, we sat side by side on the sofa. "Sam," he whispered, his voice soft but weighted, "I'm not asking you to trust me all at once, but what's between us, it's real." His words sank into me, gentle yet absolute. My heart clenched, caught between safety and danger, between the warmth of his honesty and the gravity of what it implied. I understood that stepping into this relationship meant confronting a world built on power, secrets, and risk, a world as intoxicating as it was treacherous. My heart thudded faster, breath shallow, every second charged with the blend of fear and desire. Each touch, each look, each word from Lucas drew me deeper into a tension I couldn't escape. And in that moment, I knew that my heart, fragile, reckless, trembling, was already choosing to step into his dangerous, captivating world, where love was both a sanctuary and a gamble, and every breath felt like the edge of surrender. After hours of tension and the intoxicating pull of Lucas's presence, I felt my heart being drawn toward him, as if by an invisible force. Each beat was heavy, urgent, alive. His eyes, dark and commanding, carried both tenderness and power, and I realized that distance or restraint was no longer possible. The truth was undeniable, my heart had already chosen him, even as my mind whispered its warnings. Every breath I took reminded me that every choice from this moment forward carried weight and danger. When I looked into his eyes, the light from the lamp traced the sharp lines of his face, highlighting the authority etched into every angle. I inhaled deeply, closed my eyes for a brief second, then finally whispered, "Lucas, I'll trust you." My voice trembled, my heart raced, fluttering between fear and relief, anticipation and surrender. Lucas smiled faintly, his gaze soft but unyielding. "Sam," he said, "I know you've thought this through, but I promise you no matter what happens, I will always protect you." His words soothed and unsettled me at once, a reassurance cloaked in dominance. My breath quickened, the air between us thickened with unspoken energy. When he stepped closer and his hand brushed against my cheek, the touch was both tender and commanding. I no longer hesitated. Meeting his gaze, I felt my pulse thunder through me. Each movement, each breath, each heartbeat seemed to pull us closer, like two magnets caught in inevitability. Lucas leaned in, close enough for me to feel his warmth, and then our first kiss happened soft at first, but charged, electric, alive. My heart burst open, trembling between fear and longing. The kiss deepened, growing fierce, powerful, a blend of love, surrender, and control. Emotions surged through me, raw and consuming, threading danger and safety into one. Time slowed as we sank into that moment, each breath, each touch, each heartbeat, merging into a rhythm that was both reckless and divine. I felt as if I'd handed him my heart, completely trusting, trembling, aware of every risk. Lucas's hand slid to my waist, drawing me closer, the kiss intensifying with passion and certainty. I responded, feeling both protected and possessed, the heat of connection mingling with the awareness of power. Our breathing quickened, hearts racing together, the room filled with the pulse of something too real to deny. When we finally paused, we stayed close, hands entwined, eyes locked. Silence filled the space, yet it was heavy with feeling safety and danger, love and uncertainty, all intertwined. "Sam," Lucas whispered, his tone a low promise, "I will never hurt you." Each word carried the weight of both vow and authority. I leaned against him, my heart still pounding, comforted yet restless, knowing his world was still one of shadows and influence. Trusting Lucas meant stepping fully into that world, one built on secrets, power, and risk, but it also meant choosing love over fear. My breath steadied as our heartbeats aligned, and I realized that in that instant, I had given him not just trust, but everything. It was the moment I surrendered to emotion, to danger, to the truth of what bound us, and I knew with absolute certainty there was no turning back. From now on, there was only the path ahead, to walk beside Lucas, to love him completely, and to face whatever came, heart trembling but unafraid, in a world that was at once perilous and irresistibly alive. After deciding to trust Lucas completely, a strange mix of relief and anticipation filled me. We sat together in his private office, the warm amber light from the ceiling casting a soft glow across the room, inviting, yet still heavy with the reminder of his authority. Lucas looked directly into my eyes. "Sam," he said, "from now on we step into a new chapter together, a world where power and emotion intertwine." I drew a deep breath, my heart pounding, caught between excitement and unease. I understood that trusting him meant embracing both risk and opportunity, that every choice from this moment carried weight. He began explaining his plans to legitimize the family's businesses, outlining each step in transforming gray area operations into lawful ventures in finance, real estate, and international trade. "Sam," he said quietly, "I want you to be part of this process." I listened, fascinated and tense, both drawn in and cautious. Each detail he shared felt like both a gift and a warning, a glimpse into the immense power he commanded and the responsibility that came with standing beside him. We discussed new projects from luxury real estate funds to community development programs. Lucas spoke with calm certainty. "Sam," he said, "I believe that with your involvement, we can build something transparent and lasting." His trust in me felt grounding yet perilous, a mixture of safety and risk that set my pulse racing. When he showed me the financial reports, the project outlines, and the expansion strategies, I realized that stepping into Lucas's world was not merely a matter of love, it was a professional leap, a partnership that blended ambition, discipline, and danger. Every document, every number, every strategy shimmered with both opportunity and control. Lucas placed his hand gently on mine, his gaze steady and deep. "Sam," he said softly, "making this family business legitimate isn't just about ambition, it's a promise to you, to our future." I closed my eyes for a moment, feeling my heartbeat rise and settle, a current of warmth and apprehension spreading through me. Together, we mapped the next steps, restructuring contracts, retraining staff, ensuring that every investment was clean and accountable. "Sam," he said, "I need you beside me not just as a professional, but as someone I can trust." His voice was calm yet charged, reminding me of both the gravity of what we were building and the intimacy that bound it all together. I felt both thrilled and uneasy, aware that each heartbeat marked a deeper commitment. Later, as we left the office, The glow of the streetlights reflected off the surface of Boston Harbor. Lucas took my hand. "Sam," he said, "from now on, every decision we make will be ours together." I looked at him, my heart trembling, alive with excitement and fear. Each breath reminded me that what we shared was as romantic as it was powerful, as safe as it was dangerous. And in that moment, I understood that I had stepped fully into a new world, one where love, power, and responsibility merged into something vast and uncertain. Standing beside Lucas, I felt both exhilarated and cautious, drawn toward a future built on trust, legitimacy, and ambition. It was a world that promised both beauty and risk, both control and surrender. Deep inside, a part of me still hesitated, but a greater part had already chosen to walk beside him, to build with him, to love him completely, even within the delicate balance of safety and danger, passion and power, heart and reason. As time passed, my relationship with Lucas grew deeper, both tender and profound. We often walked hand in hand through the quiet streets of Boston at night, the golden glow of the harbor lights shimmering on the water. With every step, I felt both secure and exhilarated, sensing the blend of gentleness and power that defined him. My heart stirred with excitement, every moment beside him a delicate fusion of affection, trust, and quiet awe. Lucas looked at me, his eyes soft yet commanding. "Sam," he said, "I want us to build not only a future for ourselves, but something that leaves a mark on others." I smiled, feeling a calm thrill move through me, half excitement, half fear. Together we decided to create a charitable foundation for children in crisis and families in hardship. We mapped each stage carefully, from choosing locations and prioritizing projects to finding trustworthy partners. Lucas guided me with quiet certainty. "Sam," he said, "with you by my side, we'll reach more people." His words carried reassurance and authority in equal measure, reminding me of the weight of the responsibility we now shared. My heart beat faster, each plan we made charged with both challenge and hope. Through it all, our affection deepened. Every private dinner, every walk along the beach, every shared glance or touch was steeped in trust and unspoken devotion. I felt safe, yet I never forgot the power that surrounded Lucas, the magnetic danger that came with his world. My pulse quickened with each breath, aware of both the risks and the strength of what we had built. We began to speak about creating a family, discussing it with care and sincerity. Lucas looked at me, his voice low and certain. "Sam," he said, "I want a home built on love, respect, and responsibility." I drew in a breath, my heart swelling with both calm and anticipation. I understood that stepping further into his life meant embracing not just love, but also the weight of power and duty. Together we prepared our coastal home, selecting warm, simple pieces that reflected both comfort and quiet elegance. Every small decision carried meaning. Lucas placed his hand gently on my shoulder. "Sam," he said, "everything we're doing is to build our home and our future." I smiled, feeling that strange balance of safety and risk, of tenderness wrapped in quiet vigilance. When our charity foundation opened its doors, we saw the smiles of the children we had helped, the gratitude in their eyes, the stories that began to change because of what we had built. My heart lifted and softened, filled with a profound sense of purpose. I understood then that entering Lucas's world had not just been about romance. It was about responsibility, legacy, and love intertwined with power. On quiet evenings, we would sit together on the porch, our hands clasped as we watched the sea. The rhythm of the waves mirrored the rhythm of our hearts, steady, alive, entwined. Lucas's voice was soft, almost a whisper. "Sam," he said, "I love you, and I want us to build a complete future together." I turned to him, my heart trembling between joy and calm, every breath rising and falling in time with his. In that moment, I knew I had found where I belonged, safe yet daring, cherished yet challenged. And as the night settled around us, I realized that what we were building was more than a relationship. It was a family, a foundation, a life woven from love and purpose, rich with power and tenderness, secure yet thrillingly alive. Every moment with him reminded me that I had chosen rightly the man, the moment, and the path that would carry us forward into a life both passionate and profound. A life built on love, duty, and the quiet courage to dream together. And in the end, when everything finally settled, I stood beside Lucas, gazing at the golden sunset stretching across the Boston shoreline, feeling a deep sense of peace and safety wash over me. The challenges we had faced, the risks we had taken, and the moments that had tested the very core of our hearts had all taught me something precious about trust, about love, about courage, and about the importance of choosing the right person to walk beside you in life. I realized that sometimes the decisions that seem most dangerous are the ones that lead us toward true happiness, that holding firm to your values, choosing love, and staying honest will always light the way through uncertainty. Together, they build not just a future for ourselves but for those around us as well. I understood then that every one of us has the right to dream, to choose, and to love fully. And my story with Lucas stood as proof that when we face our fears, trust ourselves, and open our hearts to those who deserve it, everything can change for the better lawfully, completely, and beautifully. It is a story not only of romance but of responsibility, not only of passion but of purpose. And now, I want to invite you, dear viewers watching this video, to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss the heartfelt stories we share every day. Please like and share this video if it touched you, and leave us your thoughts in the comments, honest reflections from your heart, so we can understand how each story connects with your own life and create even more meaningful ones together. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for watching and for being part of this journey. I hope that the story of Sam and Lucas brings you not only joy and tenderness, but also the courage to trust, to love, and to believe again in yourself and in the possibilities of life. Wishing everyone watching this video good health, peace, happiness, and a gentle heart each day. Until next time, may your days be filled with moments of warmth, inspiration, and stories that remind you of what truly matters. I'll see you again in our next video, with more moving, captivating, and heartfelt stories that awaken emotion and remind us all that every experience, no matter how uncertain, carries within it a lesson worth living for.